I have an opportunity to talk about something that is very exciting to me and something that the faculty in teacher education have worked very, very diligently on, and something where we really believe that we're on the cutting edge. So we want to make sure that our friends and colleagues really understand what it is we're talking about and why it's so important. I have a handout for you, but I want to say before I give you this handout that this handout is support. It supports the correctness of the direction that we've taken, but we had actually designed this direction before Ken Zeichner wrote this piece. So we were ahead of Ken Zeichner in the design of this, and we actually had our program up and running by the time this came out. But it's really good testimony for what it is that we're doing and for how important it is. So I'll just let those go around, and you can read those things later. This is a conversation about teacher education in a multicultural society, the TEMS concentration in our education doctorate program. And this program is, it is in fact a program. It is not just a sequence of courses and a field experience. It is a program that has been deliberately designed by the faculty in teacher education to prepare people to be able to address central problems in teacher preparation, central problems in the design, central problems in the way we think about teacher preparation. And I'll talk about what some of those central problems are that we're trying to prepare people to address in the TEMS concentration. But in this concentration, we prepare people with the knowledge of the theory, the research, and the practice in teacher preparation in a way that nobody else does it, okay? Which makes this a very, very unique kind of a concentration. You know, as you'll see as I move forward, that our people walk out with very different skill. Now, let me try to separate this out from what we do normally in the preparation in, somebody says that they have a doctorate in teacher education. Well, how is this different? This is an EDD, how is it different? How it differs is that in research-run universities that have degrees or PhDs in teacher education, they are preparing researchers. And those researchers are not really equipped to actually go in and change practice or to study their own practice. They are people who continue to collect data, who continue to design interventions for pre-service teacher preparation. Okay? So you understand that the people that we prepare are people who are qualified to go out, design, and redesign pre-service teacher preparation. And they have a kind of preparation that almost nobody does who walks out to attempt to be a teacher educator in a teacher education program, as researchers don't particularly do. There are major challenges facing teacher educators, but the central one is whether or not we are able to prepare teachers who can consistently get high outcomes from children who come from diverse backgrounds and children who are in different settings and who attend schools under different circumstances. Okay, so that's the challenge we face. And so as you look at whether you look at the NAEP data or you look at some other kind of standardized test or criterion reference test, you will see the same kind of issue. You know, the challenge of whether or not we can get children to perform at their expected age or grade level. You know, we create those expectations by how we design curriculum at the state level in most cases. But we have a challenge for getting our people there, getting the children there. So what is it that makes this so difficult? What is it about the preparation of teachers for classrooms that makes it so difficult to be able to get teachers to a point where they can consistently get high outcomes from the children in their charge? Okay? So if we take a novice teacher view, we can begin to see the complexity of the situation. So if we take a novice teacher view, we will see that the classroom is highly dynamic, it's constantly changing, it's an ill-structured situation, that there are concurrent interactions, event situations going on all the time, and that if a teacher arrives at a solution to a particular problem at a particular point in time for a particular group of students, there is no guarantee that that particular solution will work the next year or with the next class or with the next group of children. Okay? So you have an extremely complex situation that requires a lot of flexibility, a lot of knowledge of theory, a lot of knowledge of practice, and the ability to integrate all of that knowledge into decision making that goes on in a classroom minute by minute, day to day. So that's the complexity for which we are trying to prepare people. One of the things that we know about how novices think that differs, I should put it a different way, what we know about how experts think that makes it different from how novices think is that experts see patterns. Experts don't see this kind of chaos that we're looking at here that novice teachers see. Experts see and respond to patterns in the environment, to patterns in practice, to patterns in what works. Okay? One of the common things that pre-service teachers say to me when they take my diversity course in teacher preparation is, but Dr. Hollins, I have 15 languages and 12 different cultures that I could identify in my classroom, or maybe it's 17. How do I prepare for all of those cultures, all of those cultures? And what that means is that that novice is seeing all of that as individual and separate. And it's not really the case. There are patterns among cultures. There are patterns that cut across cultures. And when they come to be able to see that and work with that, the situation is not as complex and as out of control as they think. So this is the situation that we're trying to prepare teachers for. Then we have the problems of practice, the problems of how we think about it. The problems of how we think about going about this. One of the big problems is how universities treat teacher preparation. How we, in a university, don't necessarily see this complexity, don't necessarily see the expertise that it takes to be able to plan, design, and to facilitate this. So we, in many cases, tend to not pay attention to who it is that we're entrusting with this responsibility at universities. This is particularly true at Research One universities. And this is a statement from Ken Zeichner. Many universities today treat teacher education as a self-evident activity, both for school and university-based teacher educators who mentor prospective teachers in clinical experiences, and for instructors and faculty who teach the courses in teacher education programs. I'm going to give you an example of a basic fundamental problem as we try to deliver content in pre-service teacher preparation, and it's this. Theory is essential. One of the things that I frequently tell pre-service teachers who come to my classroom is that if you don't know theories of learning, you're stuck in whatever paradigm you happen to have gotten located. So everything you try, when you say you've tried everything to solve a particular learning problem, is within that one paradigm. And right now, in public education, the central paradigm that we're stuck in is behaviorism. And so we can't venture out and use, social theories of learning, social cognitive theories of learning, because we don't know them well enough. Why would that be true? There's a structural problem why it's true. And the structural problem is that in pre-service teacher preparation, in many cases, the person who teaches the theory of learning doesn't know pedagogy. Hasn't a clue. The person who teaches the learning theory course, in many cases, has never taught children. So they have no examples to draw upon. So they cannot help pre-service teachers integrate the theory into practice. It's a major problem. So that leaves the integration of theory into practice to the people who teach the methods courses. And the people who teach the methods courses are really concentrating on pedagogy, because the pedagogy is so important, and you have to know so much pedagogy in order to be able to make choices, make decisions, understand what to use, when to use it. I mean, you have so much to learn from the person who's teaching the pedagogy that it would be very difficult for that person to, at that same time, give you the fundamentals of how to apply the learning theory that you learned somewhere else. So it's a fundamental problem. It's a fundamental problem. So I want us to just kind of think about these. Another fundamental problem is, given that most of us who are in pre-service teacher preparation are not also experts in the research and theory on teacher preparation, there's another kind of a problem that exists. And the problem is in how we go about planning programs. Very often we plan programs without reference to the existing research because we don't know the existing research. That's an interesting problem. It's an interesting problem. Now, we've been trying to correct that as we've been trying to hire tenure track people. We've been trying to make sure that the tenure track people we look at are people who know the pedagogy that we're looking for, and that those people also know the research and practice in teacher preparation. It's not easy to come by for the tenure track people. That's not easy to come by. But it's really, really important. It's really important for the health of our program and for us to be able to support our TEMS concentration and our EDD the way we really want to. So those are two very common problems in teacher preparation that we're trying to overcome with the TEMS concentration. So, in the past, how have teacher educators been prepared? How have we been prepared? What is that kind of road that we travel in teacher preparation to become a teacher educator? Well, one of the things that we know for sure in teacher preparation is that the people who teach the methods courses in teacher preparation are people who have been teachers. The people who teach the methods courses have at least 3 years of experience in classrooms, at least 3 years. And most of us here, you can look us up on the state website and you will see that we are licensed credentialed teachers. Okay? Most of us can talk about our successes as classroom teachers. We can give you examples of how we apply pedagogy. That's how we teach our methods courses, okay? So we began as classroom teachers. We were either subject matter specialists, which means that we were probably single subject teachers or high school teachers, or generalists, which means that we were liberal arts people who tend to be elementary or multiple subjects people. And so historically, the route to becoming a teacher educator meant that we went out and gained greater knowledge as pedagogical content specialists, meaning that we became either a science educator or a history educator, but we learned more about how to teach that subject matter. We learned more about the theories in that particular area as it related to teaching and learning. Okay? That's how we got to be teacher educators. And so typically, the way we prepare teacher educators is through that same route. Okay? So ultimately, if we look more closely, we see that most of this preparation has this little missing link here, where we omit to teach the people who become the pedagogical content specialists who are going to become the teacher educators. The missing link is that we didn't teach them about the research and practice in teacher education. Now, while on the one hand, there is an important relationship between how we teach young people in K-12 and how we teach pre-service teachers. There are important links there. But there are also very significant differences in how we go about preparing these people. And just to give you one huge example, it has to do with the fact that we use field experiences so often in pre-service teacher preparation. You know, we use field experiences as practica for literacy development. We use it sometimes for math. We use practica in many different ways. Early experiences where we send people out to make observations in classrooms. Now this learning is very different from how we did it in K-12. This is just to give you an example of how it differs. So it means that the teacher educator needs additional skill in terms of how you facilitate this kind of complex learning. How do you facilitate this kind of complex learning? Now, I want to give you an example that will, I have some of my students here, and I hope that they're okay with this, but in the TEMS concentration, we have a field experience, okay? And in that field experience, it is a practice to theory experience, and we send our people out to try to facilitate teacher learning and to document their practice, okay? And we do this for a particular reason. The reason is that typically we send people to be mentors because they have been good teachers, or at least we know that they have a considerable amount of experience at teaching. But those of us who've been around for a while and who've studied teacher learning know that that's not a good idea, because there's a really huge difference between being a teacher and facilitating teacher learning. And what we send our people out for is to learn that. And they learn it well. You know, sometimes they learn it when they look back at what they've documented and they realize that they did not understand how to facilitate teacher learning. And that's what our last course is all about, and I'll get there. So when they come to understand that, you know, they have different feelings and different reactions. You know, but if they had not gone through that experience of documenting their practice, they wouldn't realize that they don't know how to facilitate teacher learning. And that's a really, really important thing. You know, I have some people in my courses who have been facilitating teacher learning for as long as 9 years, and they are just now learning that they didn't know how to do it. So this is a very important and very powerful thing. So essentially, teacher preparation has foundations courses, and I already described that a little bit. We have methods courses and we have field experiences. That's the big picture. The probably a more important piece of that is the fact that teacher preparation includes the combination of theoretical and pedagogical content knowledge, so that we end up ultimately with, we could categorize it as a declarative, procedural, conditional knowledge, and sometimes a general knowledge that is applied in a specific way. But the conditional knowledge is the knowledge that gets most of our teachers into a little bit of trouble. Because conditional knowledge means that you know what to do and the conditions under which to do it. Okay? And that is probably the most complicated situation to facilitate, is the acquisition of that particular skill. And in service teacher preparation, it seems overly simplistic, but we have basically two things that we deal with in service. Subject matter knowledge and pedagogical knowledge. You know, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's not much else that we deal with on a regular basis. Now, Ken Zeichner, in the article that I passed out to you, has given us in research universities a particular challenge here. He says that in the U.S., research universities have a special responsibility in preparing the new generation of teacher educators and for generating new knowledge about how to do the work of teacher education more effectively. If this new generation of teacher educators goes into their roles with knowledge of the scholarly literature related to the work of teacher education, and with the dispositions and skills to study their practice to make it better, novice teachers and their pupils will benefit. And so this gives you a notion of exactly what it is we're trying to do. So you have to keep in mind that I said that we did this, designed this program before Ken Zeichner wrote this article. So it's kind of nice to see that Ken Zeichner agrees with us that you need to have this kind of scholarly knowledge and this skill to study your own practice, okay? The field experience that I just described to you that our students go through is a way of studying their own practice so that they come to understand what is necessary in order for them to be able to improve their own practice. Needless to say, they enthusiastically embrace the course that comes after the field experience because that's where we really deal with the pedagogy of teacher education. And we also have an increasing number of our students who choose to do self-studies as their dissertation, because this is becoming a primary way that we improve practice in teacher education. So what is it that this new group of teacher educators need to know? I mean, what is it that they need to know? We've already talked about the fact that they need to know the research, you know, the trends in the research and the trends in the research findings. They need to have knowledge of pedagogical practices that support teacher learning. They need to know the curriculum in K-12 schools. They need to know curriculum in teacher education. And they need to know how the curricula are related, how they're related and interrelated. They need to have knowledge of the regulatory and accrediting agencies of teacher preparation. They need to understand how competence in teacher preparation is assessed. They need to know how learning outcomes are assessed for K-12 students, and they need to understand the relationship between the assessment of teacher competence and the assessment of K-12 learning outcomes. They need to understand, we believe, practices in the design of programs in literacy. And we chose that very deliberately because of the kinds of problems that we have in literacy acquisition and development in urban context, but also beyond urban context. If you remember the data we shared last week, not all of you were here, it shows that we have problems with literacy pretty much across the board, okay? And so we chose to include that in the TEMS concentration. And we also chose to include a focus on self-study. So that's some of the kind of knowledge that we're talking about here. So what do these new teacher educators need to be able to do? What we're suggesting is that they need to be able to model productive teaching practices. They need to be able to model it in their own teaching at this level, and they need to be able to model it in school settings when necessary. So we are looking for people who are good teachers, not just people who have experience teaching. We're looking for people who are good teachers, okay, and who can talk about elements of good practice. They need to be able to demonstrate a variety of approaches to facilitating teacher learning, whether we're talking about case studies, vignettes, or the use of some other kinds of strategies. They need to be able to demonstrate those strategies in their own practice. They need to be able to engage in meaningful and productive planning, in designing teacher preparation programs, in thinking about how teacher preparation programs are designed. And here we're talking about both pre-service and in-service. We're expecting that when our people complete our program, that they would be able to walk into a school district and talk about what would be best practices for getting teachers engaged, for getting teachers to get high outcomes for kids. And we have evidence that we have people doing that. And I'll talk about that in a minute. They need to be able to participate in the assessment of teacher competence. And they need to be able to do that in a very meaningful way, in a very constructive way, okay? So, when people have gone through our program, what kinds of roles do we expect them to be able to assume? We expect that our people would be able to go onto a university campus, and we have people who are doing this, into the CSU, or into a private university that has a good focus on teacher preparation, and that they would be able to lead an NCATE review, for example, because our people would know how to do that. Our people would know how to lead a state review. Our people would know how to create and maintain a professional development school, because our people would know how to work with school districts and how to work with universities and colleges. They would be able to engage in an academic review of a teacher preparation program. So our people would have lots of skills. Our people would be able to participate in performance assessment for teachers. So our people would have a lot of preparation coming out of our program that people wouldn't ordinarily get coming out of a PhD program in teacher education, for example. These are not the kinds of things you learn in a PhD program in teacher education. These are the kinds of things that you learn in an EDD program in teacher preparation, which is practitioner oriented. So we're preparing people to go out and do these kinds of practitioner things. So what do we expect to be the impact on the profession? The impact on the profession, it will be obviously an increased number of individuals knowledgeable about the research and practice in teacher preparation. And that's a tremendous impact on the profession itself. So we would expect to have an increased probability for an improvement in the design of pre-service and in-service teacher preparation. We would expect to have increased probability that we would be able to prepare teachers who can consistently get high outcomes from children in all different kinds of settings. Okay? So that's the impact on the field that we're looking for. So, the first cohort in our restructured TEMS concentration completed their work in the spring of 2007. And when we look at where our people are, and we certainly don't know where all of them are, when we look at where our people are, I'm very, very proud. I am very proud of where our people are. We have one of our students who interviewed and is on a tenure track position at one of our local private universities, who is in charge of the redesign of that program for NCATE accreditation. And I'm very proud of that. We have another person who is in the CSU, who is the director of early childhood special ed. And she just completed our program. We have another person who just completed our program who is beginning a professional development school for one of the campuses in the CSU. So we have, I mean, that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. But these are people who walked right out of our program and right into those places. And people trust their knowledge base. People are trusting their knowledge base. And that is as we intended. That is as we intended. So we are having an intentional impact on the universities around in terms of how they do teacher preparation. We are having an intentional impact on the profession. Our people are presenting their knowledge in all kinds of places. You know, just recently, one of our people presented at AACTE, talking about the experience that she got here in our, with our Homes partnership, talking about some of the other experiences that she has acquired. We have a couple of people who are presenting internationally this fall. So we're very, very pleased with where that is going. And of course we have quite a lot of our people who are still doing professional development in public schools, and I don't want to forget that or to minimize that, because the feedback that I get from those individuals is one of tremendous enthusiasm when they talk about what they're doing and how they're doing it, and how this program has changed how they perceive their work. Okay? So, one of the things that I can say about the faculty in terms of this concentration is that all the faculty in teacher preparation have really embraced this, this concentration, and our leader for our concentration is Sandy Kaplan, and she keeps things moving along and on track. We're constantly reviewing our program, looking at our syllabi, trying to make sure that we have, you know, the right readings for our students, making sure that we have the kind of consistency and continuity across courses that we intended. So when we meet, we work. And I think that that's a really important piece of this whole thing, because we have our program constantly under review, and we stay in contact with our students as much as possible so that we can know what they're doing, so that we can know if there are things in our program that we need to improve, if there are things that we missed, that, and we listen to their recommendations, okay? This March, I'll be reporting on the findings from our first cohort that went through the field experience. And, you know, I'm getting that through the IRB, and I'll be coding that data and writing that paper real quick here. You know, but pretty much, you know, like because the data sources for this will be the students' reflective papers, their discussions on the Blackboard, and their journals from their field experience, I'm the person who collects those and who reads those for the pedagogy course. So I already have a feel for what has happened in that field experience. I just need to code it and analyze it in a very systematic way in order to present it to AERA. But that gets our program a little bit more visibility in terms of what we're doing, so that we may be able to have some impact on how other people choose to prepare teacher educators at the same kind of level that we are doing it. So, just a word about recruitment here. In order to participate in the TEMS concentration, it is necessary to have a minimum of 3 years of teaching experience. And there are some reasons why that is really important. It's important because 3 years of teaching experience is what's required for you to be able to supervise a student teacher. It's what is required for you to be able to mentor another teacher. Okay? So in order for you to even get engaged in the field experience, you need to have at least 3 years of teaching experience. We are looking for people, and we keep getting quite a few people who have shown some leadership experience, some leadership capacity. We're getting a lot of people from the BITSA, who the beginning teacher assessment, who have been BITSA providers, and some who have actually been directors for that program. So we're looking for that kind of leadership. We also are interested in people who are adjunct faculty at other universities, who are interested in continuing their work in teacher preparation. And sometimes we get school district administrators as well, who are interested in doing this. What do we see in our future? We see continuous program review, continuous tracking of our graduates, and continuous recruitment in our future. So that's pretty much where we are.
Questions? Etta?
Comments, suggestions?
I have one, but go ahead, Laura.
The way you describe the philosophy of the program makes so much sense. I'm wondering why you think other programs haven't moved in this direction.
Well, I think that teacher preparation is like most other fields. Once you're in a particular direction, it becomes like a paradigm of how you do business. And I think it takes innovative thinking and sometimes a little pressure to get you to think differently. I mean, we have to understand how we came about to do this, you know. And some of it wasn't because we really wanted to at the beginning. Once we got into it, you know, I think we enjoyed it, but we did this out of necessity. Because the dean told us we could only have 5 courses. Yeah, dean told us we could have only 5 courses. And since this other orientation we had was not going to work, you know, we couldn't have science ed, we couldn't have math ed, we couldn't have literacy. Because any one of those things would have taken up the 5 courses, right? So we had to figure out how to do it another way. So it's like it came out of necessity. So once we sat down and began to really try to work, I mean, we stopped fighting and we sat down and we really began to work it out. This is kind of how it took form. I mean, it was a very open discussion. It was a very open discussion the way we came at this and ultimately framed it in this way.
I have a question. So I'm a complete outsider.
Mm-hmm.
So I like Laura, I agree. You know, there's a great deal of intuitive common sense behind the basic idea. Design of teacher preparation should be based on appropriate research and theory. Okay. So for that to be true, for you to be able to do that, you need to have a good base of research on teacher education, teacher pedagogy. Okay,
Right.
so I have 2 questions. One is kind of my perception as an outsider who's read some of the literature, some of the research on teacher education, is that historically that body of research hasn't always been as strong as one would like to make the kinds of design decisions that you suggest you need the good research to help you make. And I don't know whether that's true or still true or not, but I'd like your kind of reactions to that.
Okay.
The second kind of part of that is, what's the role of a research university and TEMS here in improving that research base on teacher education?
Where are we in terms of research and teacher education, in terms of the quality and the meaningfulness of it? I think that Deborah Ball's recent article, it was in the December RER, kind of addresses it for education in general. I'm not convinced that the education in teacher preparation is weaker than education in education research in general. And here's how I would say that. Education research in general has not really been that helpful in terms of understanding, learning, if that's how we want to frame it, in K-12 schools. It just hasn't been all that helpful, okay? It's getting more helpful, but historically it has not been. It's been kind of off the mark. You know, like when we study the relationship between race and social class and learning outcomes, and we find that there's a correlation, that doesn't tell us anything as teacher educators or teachers, does it? Does it? No. It doesn't tell us anything useful. As teachers, it doesn't tell us anything useful. I mean, you're in the classroom. Did that help? No. Didn't help. Okay? So we could cite a lot of research like that that's not helpful for the work that we do in practice, okay? So it's the same for teacher preparation. We have a growing body of research that's much more helpful, especially if we look at the research on teacher community, for example. As we begin to really get into understanding that social dynamic involved in in-service teacher learning, which some people are now trying to transition to or transfer to pre-service teacher learning, which I'm not sure it transfers in the same way that we think it does, you know. But there's good work that's happening in that place. You know, I think the way we study schools is problematic because it doesn't really tell us how to get good schools. You know, we're still working on it. And there are some reasons for that, you know, that we could talk about more about how we look for generic practices that work in all situations, for all times, for all people, as opposed to understanding how context interplays and looking at features of context and trying to understand how those things line up. But what is the role of a Research One university? You know, about 4 months ago, I was a part of an APR review for a Research One university, and the APR review was exclusively teacher preparation. And I raised that question to them about, you know, like what do you think is your role as a Research One university with a teacher preparation program? Is it to model what a really good teacher preparation program is like, or ought to be like? Is it to contribute a small number of highly prepared classroom teachers who can go out and impact the local school setting? Is it to generate research that has a direct, immediate impact on how we engage practice in schools, or how we engage practice in pre-service teacher preparation? I mean, what is the role? I think that is an incredibly important question, that when I asked that question, people hadn't thought about it. You know, I've thought about it a lot, you know, and I've tried to, in my own way, nudge toward a particular way for a research university to engage. And because of the way we do our work in a Research One university, which means that it's highly individualistic and it's highly interest-driven, what I've tried to argue or tried to position us as doing is creating a model pre-service teacher preparation program, because we're much more likely to be successful at creating a model pre-service teacher preparation program than in creating a single line of research that would have a definite impact. I mean, it's very difficult for us to get together, a group of people with a common interest, because that's not how we hire, okay? So it'd be much more difficult for us to get together a group of people with a common interest who would solve a particular problem. You know, they do that more often in the sciences. That's not how we hire people. So
over time, we could build.
Yeah, right.
I'm still a newbie in university.
That's going to be in the next life, right? That'll be in the next life, because the people we're hiring right now will be here for the next 25 years, or 30. So we won't be doing that now. But we can bring the people together that we have and create a model that other people can look at. And I think that's kind of what Stanford is, what Stanford and what UCLA have tried to do. They've tried to create models of practice, because it's much more difficult. Now, we have universities that have actually created lines of research, like the University of Pennsylvania, like Michigan State. They've actually created lines of research in teacher preparation, and they've moved forward, but they were very deliberate in their hiring, and they made that a very deliberate focus for their School of Education, and that's not what we're doing here. Right?
We could.
In the next life. You know, we won't be doing it now. But at any rate, that's kind of where we are, and that's, you know, we kind of wanted you to, you know, have a little insight into what we're trying to do, what we're about, and hopefully you'll give us some support.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does TEMS do like I'm a teacher, and so I'm about to go into the TEMS program.
Oh, we're so glad you came.
Yeah, and I had to fight tooth and nail, because they had me down for Ed Psych, and I picked TEMS, and so we went through that. But anyway, do we have like a clinic here where access to some of the folks who are in the program right now, about to finish up the program right now, who have that holistic, they know pedagogy and they know the theoretical frameworks to help teachers? Will we be available to do that kind of practice, not only on the school site or in our context or environment that we work in, but could we be available for teachers to come up?
Well, that's an excellent idea. We have not considered that. But I think that's an excellent idea, that we would create some kind of a clinic for teachers to come in and talk to.
Today.
I think that's an excellent idea.
I'm like, are they here today?
we can entertain that, Dr. Kaplan.
No, I'm just going to say that that's very much what I was talking to you about in terms of the University of Wisconsin and their professional pedagogical labs.
Yes, 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 yes.
So to fully realize the vision that you have for the program, what do you need in terms of resources, size, people, ways of thinking? What does it take now to really make this thing bloom?
Well, here's the thing that I think has been a consistent thing. You know, I won't speak for the whole program here, but I can't say this one thing. One of the things that has been of a concern, actually, to the EDD director and to the to the faculty in TEMS is the consistency and continuity in high quality delivery of the courses. I mean, it's absolutely imperative because of what it is that we're trying to do. You know, we have to make sure that we have people who are prepared well, who teach our courses, and that our courses are not just kind of farmed out because it's convenient. I think that is a concern. So those are some of the resources. The other thing that the faculty had talked about, and I think when we first began this concentration, we made a list of the seminal works in teacher preparation, and we did not have the resources to create like a reading lab sort of for teacher preparation, you know, where people would actually have access to those in an organized kind of way. So I think that's another thing. Well, the other thing that is an expense that it keeps coming up, when I first came to this university, we did not use doctoral students in our regular supervision. We used them in the literacy practicum, but we didn't use them in the regular supervisory roles. And the dean gave us permission, which he gradually extended, to allow our people to engage in supervision. Now, there are reasons why some of us wanted to move in that direction. One was because it gave us better control over the quality of what our people get in the pre-service teacher preparation, because we would have an opportunity to actually train the supervisors who would better understand how to facilitate teacher learning, as opposed to always having them supervised by practitioners that we may or may not have the control over. And so the other reason for wanting to maintain that situation is because some of our students now use the pre-service teacher preparation area as their field experience. We don't have a lot that do that, but we do have some that use that, and so we would need to be able to have the resources to support that. Yeah, those are just some of those, some of the areas of resources. Let's see, Sandy, did you have some other areas? I mean, you and I seem to be the ones that are
Laura's
here.
doing her budget this week, so.
You might as well tell Laura now she's going to get a memo from us about some research money.
Yes, that's right. Oh, I forgot about it. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, we need to collect some data on our people. So yes, that's right, we need some money for that. Okay, it's a good timing.